Cridland, if you're there. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 2025 Ordinary Council meeting. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past and present. I would like to advise everyone that the audio and video of this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. I request everyone please turn off your mobile phones. I remind you that any recording of the meeting proceedings and photography within the chamber is prohibited unless prior approval has been granted, and councillors and city officers are reminded to disclose any declarations of financial interests and interests affecting impartiality, and are requested to activate their microphones when addressing the meeting. So, with that, we turn to item 1, which is the declaration of opening. I declare this meeting open at 2 minutes past 6 p.m. Item 2 is a disclaimer. The City of South Perth disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Item 3 is announcements from the presiding member, that's me. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge that this is the last council meeting with the current council prior to the local government elections being finalised, I guess, on Saturday the 18th of October. Councillors, Councillor Jennifer Navard has decided not to re-nominate for re-election this time around, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Navard for her dedication and service to the community since she was elected in 16 October 2021. Councillors, can we please give Councillor Navard a round of applause for her service? And I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish all the candidates good luck in the forthcoming local government elections. At this point in the meeting, the Mayor or the Deputy Mayor acting in the position of the Mayor presents the following report on mayoral engagements and meetings attended in the Mayor's capacity since the last council meeting. So a summary of this report will be provided in the minutes. And if you're happy just to bear with me for a couple of seconds while my PC boots up, I'll present this month's mayoral report. And here we go. As some of you know, I've been on leave. I've been on a road trip with my family for 2 of the weeks this month. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. Okay. So for those members in the gallery who might not be aware, or those who might be listening via YouTube, Council passed a motion at the October 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. And that motion resolved that at each ordinary council meeting, I must prepare a report, present a report on the mayoral engagements and meetings attended by me in my capacity as mayor since the last council meeting. And the reasons in support of that motion stated that this practice is considered essential for maintaining transparency, fairness and accountability, allowing both councillors and the community to be fully informed of the Mayor's activities and enabling them to participate more effectively in council deliberations. So that's why I'm doing this. First part of the report. The first part of the report that I'm required to present is a summary of the events attended and persons met with by the Mayor in his or her capacity as Mayor since the last council meeting. So councillors, in accordance with Council's resolution, the last council meeting was held on Tuesday the 26th of August. So I'll begin from Wednesday the 27th of August. So on Thursday the 11th of September, I attended the 39th South Perth Young Writers Awards, affectionately known as SPIWA. I've had the privilege of presenting the SPIWA Awards for 6 years now. And every year I'm absolutely amazed by the captivating and entertaining stories produced by our very talented young people. The City of South Perth is delighted to facilitate SPIWA and help showcase the extraordinary creative writing abilities of these wonderful young authors and encouraging them to develop their very impressive talents. So on behalf of the city, I'd like to extend congratulations to all of the brilliant entrants and winners in this year's Spira Awards. On Saturday the 13th of September, I attended the Manning Community Toy Library's AGM. For a number of years now, I've been attending the Toy Library's AGM and reading stories to the children that are there while the adults conduct the AGM itself. And after I did that, I headed over to Challenger Reserve for the South Perth United Football Club's Junior Awards Day. Sunday, 14 September, I attended the Manning Memorial Bowling Club for their season opening day, followed by the Manning Rippers Football Club youth wind-up that afternoon. Tuesday, the 16th of September, I met with Acting CEO Matthew Scott. And once again, as you all know, I meet with the CEO or acting CEO at least once a week to discuss the local government's affairs and performance of its functions in line with Section 2.8 of the Local Government Act. And in an effort to try and reduce the length of the report, I'll note that I also met with Mr Scott today for that very same purpose. Also on Tuesday, 16 September, I served as the presiding member at the Council Agenda Briefing meeting. On Wednesday, the 17th of September, I attended the City of South Perth citizenship ceremony and helped congratulate 54 new Australian citizens on their brand new Australian citizenship. And thank you to everyone that attended that ceremony. Today, Tuesday, the 23rd of September, I met with Acting CEO Matthew Scott and the City's communications team. And as you all know, I meet with the City's comms team once per week to discuss current and upcoming communications by the City, potential third-party media relevant to the City, and my duties as spokesperson for the City. And that brings us up to tonight's Ordinary Council meeting. Second part of the report that I'm required to present is an overview of the key issues, initiatives and matters that I've been addressing in my capacity of Mayor since the last Council meeting. But I've been on leave since the last Council meeting, so nothing to report there. And with that, we are up to date. That brings us to item 4, which is attendances. Item 4.1 is apologies. We've received an apology from Councillor Bronwyn Moore. Item 4.2 is approved leaves of absence. Councillor Hayley Prendeville has an approved leave of absence for the period of 23 September 2025 to 10 October 2025 inclusive. And I have an approved leave of absence for the period of 24 July 2025 to 17 October 2025. But we wouldn't have a quorum if I was here, so I guess it's a good thing I am here. Item 5 is declarations of interest. Councillors, does anyone have any declarations of interest that they'd like to declare? I'm going to take that as a no. Item 6 is public question time. Item 6.1 is responses to previous public questions taken on notice. That's nil. Item 6.2 is public question time itself. I now open public question time at 9 minutes past 6 p.m. We've received 2 written submissions prior to tonight's meeting, and I'd like to begin by inviting Mr Stephen Russell of Como. If you'd like to come to the microphone, welcome to you, and we look forward to your questions.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Russell from Como, and I believe I need to declare that I'm a candidate for the Moresby ward for the upcoming local government elections. These questions are a follow-on to my previous questions of the August OCM regarding the damage beyond repair of a large lemon-scented gum tree on development site, DAP 22-02273, at the corner of Clydesdale and Davilick Street during construction. This tree was a magnificent and landmark tree, and in my observations, one of the few examples where a developer had decided to retain such a tree, making its destruction even the more tragic. I need to note that the city's recommended a condition of approval within the RAR for the protection of this tree did not make reference to Australian standard AS 4970, protection of trees on development sites, nor the arborist's report contained within the DA, which amongst others required for this tree A tree protection zone per the prescribed Australian standard, B, mulching, C, possible exploratory root excavation to be undertaken in advance of works to further aid design, and D, determination of a possible extensive root mass that is roots above 40 to 50 millimetres in diameter. Hence, my questions are, 1, can the City confirm if the arborist requirements were met for this DA?
Thank you for the question. Mr Quigley.
Thank you, Mr Russell. The City does not proactively monitor demolition or construction sites, so we are unable to confirm whether the recommendations of the arborist report that was prepared by Civica, dated 6 October 2022, were carried out on site during the works.
Thank you. 2. As the City did not provide a clear or unambiguous response to my previous question of the August OCM, then I need to repeat the question here. Did the City, prior to and during construction, perform site visits to verify that the tree protection condition was satisfactory to ensure its survival? The emphasis on site visit.
Thank you for the question. Mr Quigley.
Thank you again. This is partially addressed in the answer to question 1. However, just to be clear, a site visit was not undertaken by the City to check on the welfare of the large lemon-scented gum tree during the construction period.
Thank you for the clarities. Number 3, for DAP 23025517, an 11-grouped dwelling development at the corner of Lay and Phillips determined in October 2023, the City recommended tree protection conditions as follows. A, public verge trees to be retained are required to be protected by a tree protection zone to Australian standards, mulched within the TPZ and watered weekly up to 500 litres each. The DAP approved this condition with a variation to watering. And B, no specific tree protection conditions for a large on-site jacaranda to be retained, nor reference to the arborist report which made reference to Australian standards AS 4970 tree protection. Hence, when comparing the two aforementioned DAP applications, there are discrepancies to how the City approaches tree protection conditions of approval. That is, public trees have clear and rigorous protection criteria, whereas trees on private lands do not. Does the City consider this approach as being orderly and proper planning to ensure the survival of retained private trees on private development lands?
Thank you for the question. Mr Quigley.
Conditions associated with development approvals are determined on a case-by-case basis. In August 2025, Council adopted Local Planning Policy 3.2, titled Tree Retention, which is aimed at providing greater protection and consistency for preserving local trees on private property.
Thank you, Mr Quigley, and thank you, Mr Russell, for the questions. I would now like to invite Mr Roberto Filippetto. I hope I've pronounced his surname correctly. Welcome to the microphone. We look forward to your questions.
Good evening, everybody. I'm a local resident in 42 Douglas Avenue. I have a query regarding to lately a lot of hooning happening in our street. And as I wrote in the question mark there, maybe the council can help us with some calming devices in the order of humps or whatever that is necessary, because it's becoming more and more intolerable at the moment. And especially there's a lot of happening with a broken muffler or a special type of muffler that make a lot of noises or whatever. So it's not really nice. So I wonder whether it's the council can do something about it.
All right. Ms Amprimo, can I send that your way?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, for the question. So Douglas Avenue already has several traffic calming measures installed. Given the classification and the purpose of this road, there is limited further engineering interventions. However, the City will look to see if there are any other suitable engineering options. The City has a number of speed awareness signs that it can deploy across the City, and we'll see if we can find a location on Douglas Ave that is suitable to locate that. The City also regularly has ongoing discussions with WA Police relating to antisocial driver behaviour. And on the advice of WA Police, we would encourage residents to contact the police directly when this activity is occurring, as this helps them to prioritise resources and deploy them accordingly.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo. And your second question, Mr Filippetto?
The second question was regarding some empty houses or houses that are inhabited, that nobody lives in it, which I have no queries about it. But the thing is, two of them are really give a bad aspect in the street. And one of them with a scaffolding erecting or a fence erected at the front of the house, the property, and nothing has done about it, and been there for about 10 months now. So it's anything that the council can do regarding to that, I'm not sure. His squatters used to live in them. And there is another house that is being, nobody lives in it, but it's used as a dumping ground for all sort of stuff. I go photograph evidence of that, and I don't think it's fair for the street appeal of the street that if you dump all the leftover equipment or whatever you got in your front yard, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What I might get you to do just before I give that to Ms Amprimo to answer, if you can let us know behind the scenes which houses in particular you're referring to, that will help us, but I'll send the question to Ms Amprimo for an answer.
I got the address number if you like.
Yeah, let's do it outside the meeting just to be safe. But I'll let Ms Amprimo answer your question, but if you can let us know behind the scenes which houses you're talking about, that will help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So depending on the condition of unoccupied properties, there are several actions that the local government can undertake. For example, if the property is in a poor state with identified health hazards, e.g. pest infestations or a fire hazard, then enforcement can be implemented under the relevant legislation. If a property is in an unclean state or squatters are present, owners can be approached to clean it and secure the property, and would ask you to contact the city through our request system or by phoning our main line to give us details on the particular addresses that you have concerns with.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo. And your third question, Mr Filippetto?
I don't have the paper with me, but I think the third question was regarding to the front, between this curb and the front yard, or the fence.
I've got the question that you submitted to us. Shall I read that one for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the third question that you submitted to us through our portal was, is the council responsible for the front verge of a property? If not, can the council enforce any bylaws to keep it clean and tidy? You happy if I send that to Ms Amprimo for an answer?
Please.
All right. Ms Amprimo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the maintenance of lawns and gardens on verges is the responsibility of the owner of the property on adjacent to the verge, while the city is responsible for all street trees on verges. The residents are encouraged to establish road-advised verge gardens and look after the verges. Whilst the city encourages the care of the verge by the adjoining resident, there is no local law to enforce this.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo, and thank you, Mr Filippetto, for your questions. All right, I'll just check to see if there's any late questions in the tray with governance. No, there's not. Okay. In that case, I now close public question time at 19 minutes past 6 p.m. Item 7 is confirmation of minutes and notes. Item 7.1 is minutes. Item 7.1.1 is the ordinary council meeting held on the 26th of August 2025. I'm about to look for a mover and a seconder on a motion that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held 26 August 2025 be taken as read and confirmed as a true and correct record. A mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. A seconder, please. Councillor Navard, thank you. Councillors, does anyone oppose this motion? I'm going to take that as a no, so I'll use my powers under the standing orders to declare that carried unanimously. We move on to item 7.2, which is notes of briefing. I'm about to call for a mover and a seconder to move a motion that council notes 7.2.1, that no concept briefings and workshops were held, and 7.2.2, the council agenda briefing was held on 16 September 2025. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Brenda Abrandis, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sousa, thank you. Councillors, does anyone oppose this motion? No. Okay, then I declare that carried unanimously. Moving on to item 8, which is presentations. Item 8.1 is petitions. That's nil for this evening. Item 8.2 is gifts or awards presented to council. That's nil for this evening. And item 8.3 is deputations. Deputations were heard at the council agenda briefing held on 16 September 2025. That takes us to item 9, which is method of dealing with agenda business. And I'm about to seek confirmation from the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Mr Matthew Scott, that all the report items contained in tonight's agenda were discussed at the September Council agenda briefing. Mr Scott.
Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you very much, Mr Scott. So, with the exception of those items to be withdrawn for discussion this evening, reports will be adopted by exception resolution. And by this, I mean the officer recommendation will be accepted as is, without discussion or amendment. Does anyone wish to withdraw any of the items tonight for discussion? Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
10.3.1, Mr Mayor.
10.3.1, that is proposed group dwelling, lot 4, number 7, Salter Point Parade, Salter Point, section 31 reconsideration. Okay, that's been withdrawn. Any other items to be withdrawn for discussion this evening, councillors? No. Okay. In that case, I'll call for a mover and a seconder to carry the following items by exception resolution. Those items are item 10.4.1, listing of payments, August 2025. Item 10.4.2, monthly financial statements, August 2025. Item 10.4.3, electors special meeting, 25 August 2025. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Brenda Abrandis, thank you. Seconder? Councillor De Souza, I think, was first. Thank you. Councillors, does anyone oppose any of those 3 items? No. Okay. In that case, I declare them carried unanimously. Those items have just been passed by exception resolution in accordance with clause 5.5 of the City of South Perth Standing Orders Local Law 2027, and the officer's recommendations have been accepted by council. We'll now be moving on to the one and only report identified to be withdrawn for discussion this evening. That is item 10.3.1, proposed group dwelling, lot 4, number 7, Salter Point Parade, Salter Point, section 31 reconsideration. There is an officer recommendation before us. I haven't received any alternative or amended motions. Would anyone like to move the officer recommendation? Councillor De Souza, seconded by Councillor Brenda Abrandis. Councillor De Souza, the floor is yours if you would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll just start by setting the scene and the context behind why we are where we are. So this came to a previous council meeting, and I moved a motion we reject the DA because we recently, in April of 2024, gazetted our new town planning scheme, or LPS 7. In that scheme, after years of work, we enshrined policies and sections in that scheme which sought to protect views along the Salter Point escarpment, which is noted of having a very unique geographic character. This was the first major DA to come to council under our new scheme for Precinct 13, as it was known, or as we now call it, the Salter Point escarpment. So I felt at the time it was important to hold developers to these provisions and ensure we have clarity around these provisions. So that's why I brought my motion that we reject the initial DA, and it subsequently went to SAT. I was able to represent council at SAT, and with the help of a consultant, numerous things were discussed. I can't go into detail because SAT mediations are confidential. But I think from the outcomes, it's clear this is a good result. I'll go through the outcomes. So if I can turn to page 11 of the agenda papers, plan revisions, and highlight 2 of these revisions, which I think are a good result. The first one is the actual reduction in roof height of 0.105 metres. Now, at first blush, this might seem like a small amount, and I'm not denying that. It's not a huge amount. But it was critical, I thought, and council agreed, that we hold applicants to this height envelope, because that's what we as a council decided we should put into our scheme and into our policies. because this was a test case, in my opinion. And if the 0.105 metres was the, I guess, pushing the envelope aspect this DA, the next one might have been a bit more, the next one might have been a bit more, and all of a sudden we're getting to a point where potentially it's up to 0.9 or 1 metres in terms of height. The second major win, I think, from this result in terms of the plan revisions is dot point 4, which is the upper floor master bedroom with reduction by 1 metre. This is also a significant result, and I want to thank Joe Algieri for his deputation last week. He was extremely open and productive in terms of our sort of discussions at SAT. I also want to thank the city staff and our consultant who provided great advice throughout the entire process. I think we've landed at a good outcome for the residents of Precinct 13 or the Salter Point Escarpment, in that there is a greater planning certainty in that area, and it shows that we as a council are willing to diligently and faithfully enforce provisions which we put into the scheme, and I think it's a good result. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor D'Souza. Councillor Brenda Abrandis, you're the seconder, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The applicant submitted for development approval a group dwelling at Lot 4, number 7 Salter Point on 22nd of April 2025 at the Ordinary Council meeting. The officer's recommendation in April was very clear. The application should have been approved subject to special considerations, and it should have been given due regard to the Local Planning Policy 5.1 Salter Point Escarpment. The site is zoned residential with a density code of R20 under LPS 7, which limits the building height within the Salter Point Escarpment. Prior to the application being submitted in April, the City requested an amendment to the design, which was accommodated by the applicant. The officer's report clearly articulated the development did not significantly obstruct views of the Canning River. The proposal had been assessed based on Local Planning Policy 5.1. The projections above the maximum building height may be approved having regard to the provisions of the Local Planning Policy waiting for the building height in that area. The officer's recommendation further provided context to the projected envelope, resulting in that the exceedance was only 10.5 centimetres. The officer's recommendation also addressed the assessment of significant structure and provided guidance noting that the line of sight is only considered for properties adjoining the site where the primary consideration being the rear adjoining property, that was number 80 Riverview Way. Lesser weight was given to the properties that had side views on the overside of the boundary. The officer's report confirmed that the proposal was assessed to comply with all the applicable deemed to comply provisions of the R codes, apart from lot boundary setbacks, site works and visual privacy. There was no non-compliance with regard to significant views or the building height when this was presented in April. This development was designed having regard to the requirements of LPS 7 and Local Planning Policy 5.1. The proposal did not detrimentally impact views. There was a minimal impact with regard to the access of views to the Canning River. The officer's recommendation was clear and should have been accepted subject to special considerations.
Councillor Brenda Abrandis, I'm going to have to jump in there just for a moment. I've been listening very carefully. You've kept it very factual so far, but our standing orders do say that we can't reflect adversely on a previous decision of council, so I'll give you the opportunity to withdraw the comment that it should have been approved. Everything else that you said was completely factual, though.
Sure. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll withdraw that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can please continue.
Okay. The applicant had been incredibly accommodating, initially amending the design before it was presented to council in April, and further amending the design now. Now, some elected members have sat on SAT determinations before and obviously attended this determination. And the only reason for this variation was a 10.5 centimetre variation. In the April Ordinary Council meeting, there was a lot of discussion around the exceedance being 1 metre to 1.3 metres in height. And that's been confirmed by the administration that it wasn't a 1 metre or 1.3 metre height exceedance, it was merely 10.5 centimetres. Last week we heard responses from both the city's officers and also Mr Joe Algieri, who's a planning expert with over 30 years experience, and he confirmed the 10.5 centimetre height variance was insignificant with regard to the impact on views for the adjacent neighbouring properties. It was also confirmed that the development is consistent with the design principle 5.1, P6 of the residential design codes, as the building height proposed did not adversely impact access to significant views. The proposed development did not exceed the projection of the envelope in accordance with the local planning policy P5.1, Salt Point Escarpment. The application...
Sorry to interrupt again, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. That is 5 minutes. I'll move a motion that you be granted a further 5 minutes to speak. Would someone else second that motion, please? Councillor Navard, thank you. Councillors, please cast your votes on a motion that Councillor Brenda Abrandis be granted a further 5 minutes to speak. And we might have to use our hands for this one, so... And that was unanimous. Sorry for the interruption, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. Please continue. You have a further 5 minutes.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Continuing on, so we heard from the officers and also from Mr Joe Algieri with regard to this application. It was also confirmed last week that the application for this local planning policy did not result in an exceedance against the local planning policy in excess of a 1 metre height, but it was only a 10.5 centimetre height differential. This proposed development is consistent with Clause 67 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015, as the proposal is consistent with the orderly and proper planning. It's consistent with the building height as being compatible for the desirable character in the setting and development of the land, in the locality and in relation to the effect of the height, and also the proposal is consistent with the amenity of the locality. A considerable amount of time has been undertaken with regard to the administration and also with regard to the applicant with their initial amendments prior to presenting to council in April, and also again with the marginal reduction. And I'm concerned about the amount of time that we have spent with regard to a 10.5 centimetre variance. So for good governance, I encourage council to approve this development application with the marginal 10.5 centimetre adjustment and to allow the applicant to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. Councillors, would anyone like to speak against the officer recommendation? No. Would anyone else like to speak in favour? No. No one has spoken against the officer recommendation, so no need for Councillor D'Souza to wind up. I'll simply put the officer recommendation to the vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. And maybe we'll do it by hands. All those in favour? And that was unanimous. Thank you, councillors. All right, that concludes item 10. Item 11 is applications for a leave of absence. Councillors, I haven't received any applications prior to tonight's meeting. Does anyone want to apply for a leave of absence? No? Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item 12, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. That's nil for this evening. Item 13 is questions from members. Item 13.1 is responses to previous questions from members taken on notice. That's nil. Item 13.2 is questions from members. Councillors, any questions for the administration this evening? I think Councillor Cridland was first there.
I'm happy for Councillor Navard to go first since it's her last meeting, if the meeting and the presiding member is willing.
Of course. Councillor Navard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My only question was relating to the sumps and whether there would be the likelihood that any of the sumps that were being audited would have the capacity to become a community garden, acknowledging that they do require community commitment to keep going. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. Mr Quigley, can I send that your way? Oh, Ms Amprima, my bad.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Navard. As elected members will be aware, we've been going through an audit of our drainage systems. The type of use of a drainage sump that you're talking about would require a design where it is a fairly flat and shallow drainage sump. We have a limited number of those within the city, but until we get the outcome of that drainage review, it would be difficult to say whether any of them could be used in that way or not.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo, and thank you, Councillor Navard. Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a few questions. First one relates to some issues I'd asked at the last few meetings about our sporting and community clubs, and in relation to them still waiting to finalise their long-term leases for occupation or licences for long-term occupation of their locations. And I was wondering how many sporting and community clubs or groups are waiting to renew their long-term leases and are on month-to-month agreements, and how long is the longest that a group has been waiting on a month-to-month basis? That's my first question.
Mr Scott.
Through the chair, we'll have to take that on notice. It will take some research for us to provide a response.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Your second question, Councillor Cridland.
My next questions relate, I think, largely to the general subject matter of trees, and it comes in the context of the city having planted a number of, well, apparently a fairly large number of trees in the public realm, for example, near Collier Park Golf Course, the Thelma Street Transfer Station, Billy Graydon Oval, etc. I was wondering, does the city keep a record of how many new trees it's planted in the public realm over the last 12 months or over the last financial year or over a calendar year, for example?
Ms Amprima.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cridland, for the question. On an annual basis, we plant around 1,000 trees in the streetscapes, and maybe another 200 to 300 in our bushland and public open space. That number varies slightly depending on, as you can imagine, when we bring plants on, grow them on in the nursery, some survive, but there is some that don't. So the numbers that we produce are approximate based on what we believe the need will be. And then towards the end of the planting season, what you're seeing at the moment is the trees that we have left, but we always end up with around about 1,200 every year. We do track the location of them. We record them in a tree register, so we do know where all of the trees that we have planted are, and we know how many we plant each year.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo. Your third question, Councillor Cridland?
Yes. Following on from that question and answer, does the city also keep a record of its expenditure on the trees that are planted in the public realm?
Ms Amprimo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of the planting is undertaken by contractors, so we have quite clear definable costs that we track for that. We also have ongoing maintenance for newly planted trees, particularly in their first 2 years of life. Most of those costs are fairly traceable with our current financial system. We work on around $940 per tree for the first 2 years of its life. That's potentially slightly higher than industry average, but we have higher survival rates than industry average. So we focus on putting the resources into the first 2 years of life to have a higher success rate of establishing trees. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does, thank you. Next question relates to a question I sent through in respect of 61 Edgecombe Street and what I thought was a Norfolk pine, but from the answer I can see was in fact a Cook Araucaria, which is a related species but quite different in one respect, in that it is the only tree that actually has a bend or a lean towards the equator, which I noticed. When I looked it up, having read your answer, I had a question in respect of that, noting that there is a lean on the quite tall Cook Araucaria on 61 Edgecombe Street. Does the city have a view as to whether or not it's safe and is not a fall or failure risk, given that there is a DAP approval made in May of this year for a number of group dwellings to go on that property?
Ms Amprimo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you just clarify, is that the tree on private property?
No, it's
On
on the
public land?
it's on the verge just outside the boundaries.
So if it's a city-owned tree, we would inspect it where we have concern. So we have someone who's a couple of staff members who are actively out looking at street trees, and where there was concern about its integrity, we would get in an external arborist to do an assessment on it. But if it's something that you've got a particular concern about, we can have another look at it.
Thank you. And my final question relates to Connect South or Minderup, which was changed to remove the trees that provided shade down there on the foreshore near the jetty. And then some questions were asked in 2021 from the community. I can't remember the member who member of the public who asked them, relating to perhaps replacing some of the artificial metal structures with some trees to provide shade for the public down there. And your predecessor, then Director Taylor, said that there was going to be a 21-22 financial year review of that issue for Connect South and Minderup as to whether or not there could be some trees planted down there for shade. Was that review ever carried out? And can the councillors and the public be made aware of it, if it was?
Ms Amprimo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. I have been unable to locate anywhere on our system a review that has been undertaken that was referenced back in 2021. I can't find any reference of it anywhere on our system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo. Councillors, any further questions for the administration this evening? Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question with regard to the verge at 9 Wandara Close in Carrawarra. There's a significant amount of household rubbish and waste that's actually been on that verge for at least a couple of weeks. I'm just wondering if the administration's aware of it, have received any complaints. It includes household furniture and white goods, and it's sort of spilling onto the edge of the road.
Who should I send that question to, folks?
Through the chair, I don't believe we've received a complaint, but we will now investigate and get some further information if we can.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. One final question, just with regard to the planned infrastructure works for this current year. For Carrawarra, do we have any significant lighting upgrades or installations that are actually planned for the remainder of this year?
Ms Amprimo, should I send that your way?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there is $200,000 in the budget for the Carrawarra laneways, which will include some lighting improvements as well as the footpath improvements through there. And there's also the election commitment that was by the state member, Jeff Baker, and I believe some of that lighting was intended to go in that area as well.
Thank you, Ms Amprimo, and thank you, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. Councillors, any further questions for the administration? No. Okay. All right, that brings us to item 14, which is new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. That's nil. Item 15 is when we would ordinarily close the meeting to the public if there was any reason for us to do so, but there's not, so we won't. And item 16 is closure. So before I close tonight's meeting, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation this evening. I declare the meeting open at 6:48 p.m. What did I do? Oh, goodness. Okay. Yep. Well, we had to have one stuff up, didn't we? All right. I declare the meeting closed, not opened, closed, at 6:48 p.m. Thank you all and good night.